Hello and welcome to Soul Synergy Network. I'm Dr. Irma Elisheva Diaz, and I'm honored to spend this time with you today. As a grief counselor with many years of experience, one of the most profound lessons I've learned is this: grief is deeply personal and unique to each individual. How we navigate grief is shaped by so many factors: our personality, our upbringing, our culture, our religious beliefs, traditions, and life's experiences. No two people grieve the same way, and that's okay. Today, we're going to begin exploring the many layers of grief, layers that are often hidden, yet profoundly impact how we process the loss of a loved one. When we lose someone dear to us, it's natural to think the pain we feel is tied solely to their absence, the empty space they leave behind. But grief is far more complex than that. Often, we don't fully understand what we're feeling, and neither do the people around us. That's the thing to remember, is that we may be feeling certain things, and people that love us and want to help us, they just really don't know what to do or how to do it or what to say. Here's the truth. We're not just mourning the person that we lost. We're mourning all the layers of loss that come with their departure. In other words, an example would be when I lost my parents, I woke up one morning and I realized I was no longer a daughter. You're no longer a daughter. And I talked to myself. I'm no longer a daughter. It felt so weird because all these years I had been a daughter, and I no longer have a mother. I no longer have a father on this earth. It felt weird, but it also changed the role I played as daughter. And it felt foreign to me. And so there was a part of me for a while, didn't last a long, long time, although with some it may, that I grieved that. I thought about it. In fact, every morning I would grieve, and I would go out and I saw a star up in the sky, and it was like early morning hours, and I would look up and it was the same star every morning. And I'd always be thinking about that. I'd always be thinking, I'm no longer a daughter. How weird is this? It's so foreign to me. So we have layers like that people don't understand. So if you're grieving a certain way, and you're behaving a certain way, or you're talking a certain way about certain things, they may not understand that there are layers that you're going through. So it's not just that you missed your loved one, which is overwhelming and which supersedes it all, but there's still the other layers. So let's look at a layer of loss. These are secondary losses. Grief extends beyond the physical absence of a loved one. We grieve the life we knew, the routines we shared, and the future we envisioned with them. So I would get up every morning and bring my dad coffee and what we call in Spanish pan dulce, which is the Mexican bread. I would have that, and I would make him café con leche, right? Coffee. And I would make him that at 5 a.m, between 5 and 5:30, and I take it to him, to his room. I put it by his recliner, and he used to say, "Oh, mija, thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're such a good daughter," right? That little thing that I did for years, right, when I was in town, because I did a lot of traveling, but when I was in town, that little thing stuck with me, and it became part of my role. Part of my identity, part of who I am, right? When he was gone, it was so weird to have the house, without him. And I no longer had to get up at 5 because he was an early riser, although I am. It wasn't a big deal. But I no longer got up and I no longer had to do that. And there were times where I was real tired. I didn't feel like doing it, but I did it for him because I loved him so much and appreciated him so much. But all of a sudden I didn't have to do that anymore. And it was so weird to grieve that, but I actually grieved that. So what do you call that? That's a layer, right? It's a layer of grief. That's how we begin to understand and bring clarity to our grieving. And did people understand that about my dad and the coffee and the bread? No, they didn't understand that about me, right? In fact, I may not even have shared it with anybody, but it was a layer of grief. That's what happens to us, right? Then there's the mental impact. The loss can shake our sense of stability, our sense of purpose, and even our identity, right? The plans, the hopes, the dreams that are tied to our loved one may now feel unreachable, or even take it as far as saying erased, right? Our plans that we had, especially a married couple. Maybe you had plans. My parents had plans to retire and travel, right? They never got to do that because my mom passed younger, way younger, 13 years younger than my dad. So they didn't get to do certain things. They did some traveling, but not like they had planned. So their plans changed. Their hopes for certain things with family, with grandchildren and all that stuff, they changed, right? Dreams that you may have, things that you may want to do together, you can't do anymore as a married couple, right? So all of that brings layers to it in your role. So whatever your role was in that relationship, you start to grieve the layers of that role. Do people understand that? As much as they love you, they don't. Do they say the right thing all the time? We're going to talk about that in another podcast. No. Is there a way to handle it? Yes. Do you bring clarity to it? Absolutely, right? So that you don't get offended. It's important. So there's an emotional impact. We lose the support, the comfort, and the companionship that they provided. I loved having my parents, and I miss them so much, but my dad 13 years after my mom. So I was used to a certain companionship of having my daddy with me in my home, right? I lost that. It brought layers. Relationships and social roles shift sometimes. When you lose a loved one, relationships that you had, one lady told me she was invited, her husband passed away, and then her friends that they used to all go out with invited her to a Valentine's dinner. She didn't want to go. Do you blame her? No, right? But she said to me, I belong to the club, and I'm going to be invited to a lot of things they do together, right? They golf together. They did all these things. I'm going to be invited, and I don't feel like going because I'm the third wheel, and it's just going to remind me that they have each other and I no longer have my loved one, right? Relationships, her role changed. It shifted. Is she going to grieve that? Yes. On top of grieving the loss of her husband, she's going to grieve that loss of role. The physical impact. Grief often manifests in physical ways, such as fatigue, as I've mentioned this in other podcasts, tension, difficulty concentrating. We can't forget that. We have to keep reminding ourselves that because that's helping us navigate. That's very important. So why grief takes time. This is why healing from grief is not about simply getting over the death of a loved one. It takes time because there's layers, right? Because your whole life has changed. There's layers upon layers and things that even the closest people in your life can't identify because they don't know the very inner parts of who you are and what you're feeling, right? Unless you share it. So grieving means learning to live through all the changes, the secondary losses, the emotional upheaval, and the shifting roles in our lives, one step at a time, because everything changes. Healing happens gradually, often minute by minute, as we adjust to the new reality. It's not easy. And you wake up and you look in the mirror and you may even look a little tired, circles under your eyes. You may feel like you just don't feel yourself. And then you start to think about how your life has changed. What are you going to do next? You just woke up. I'm going to go get coffee. Okay, let me go get coffee. Do I go out for coffee? Do I make coffee here? Am I going to sit out in the yard? Well, we used to sit together on the porch. Now I can't do that. Whatever it is, I'm just pulling things as examples, but whatever it is, it happens minute by minute, and you grieve that. To help navigate these layers of grief, I encourage grief counseling if you think you need it, a safe space to process your feelings. It's important. It's very important. Grief groups, connecting with others who are walking a similar path is key. It's so important. Sometimes they'll say something that helps the other person. The other person will say, yeah, that's what I feel. But they didn't know that until they heard the other person say it. And it starts to bring a healing to one's heart when you know that there are others that resonate and others that understand. It helps you navigate. And remember, that's what's so key and so important right now is that you learn to navigate. Self-care plans, prioritizing your emotions, your emotional and your physical well-being during the journey, it's so important, right? So whatever it is that's self-care for you. For a woman, it might be, I'm going to go get a facial, or whatever happens in your life, whatever is important, or I'm just going to go take a walk. Maybe you don't want to spend the money on a facial. Maybe you can't, but maybe there's something else, right? Maybe there's something you could do at the park. There's so many different things that a person can do for self-care, and they may be little. And like I said in another podcast, spoon feed it so that you're not trying to do a bunch of stuff at the same time, and that you're able to minister to your needs, right? So these tools provide the support, the strength, and the resources needed to move forward, even when the path feels completely overwhelming. So as I close, I want to remind you that in upcoming podcasts, we're going to dive deeper into the specific types of loss that accompany grief and explore ways to process each one. For now, remember, grief is a layered experience. It's mental, it's emotional, and it's physical. It's okay to feel lost because in many ways we are when we're going through this. That's why we need to hone in with clarity. But with time, support, and self-compassion, healing is possible. It really is. You can get on the other side of this and continue to love your loved one and continue to miss them and continue to live and honor their legacy. So I invite you to visit my website, soulsynergynetwork.com, where we can keep in touch with you. I'm excited to announce plans for an affordable virtual grief group session, allowing everyone to join and connect with the comfort or within the comfort of their own home, no matter where they are. We're going to periodically send out resources on grief healing and support. Very important. Just make sure to leave us your email address so we can stay in touch. I'll share additional insights, tools, and updates on future projects designed to help you through your journey. I'm looking forward to offering workshops and all of these things that are very, very helpful. And believe it or not, they're even helpful if you're not in grief. But even if you're trying to help somebody else that's grieving that you're close to, it's important and very, very helpful. If you have any questions about the podcast, you can email us at soulsynergynetwork@gmail.com. and we will get back to you. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. I encourage you to explore more of my mini podcasts on grief, where we'll continue to uncover the many layers of this journey together. May you find peace, strength, and hope as you move forward. Until next time, God bless you.